really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Imagineers Disney Podcast. I am your host, Matt. What are you doing, Susie?
My computer moved.
Well, you're making all the noise and stuff.
Oh, hi! I'm here.
And also blasting out my ears.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My goodness.
It wasn't straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to bother me, so.
Well, there we go.
Oh,
now,
here.
Now we're straight a little bit, I guess.
Oh, more or less.
Anyway, I'm your host, Matt, and I am joined, as always, by my somewhat crooked.
My head's not straight. Is my head crooked? I think my head's just crooked.
Co-host, Susie.
I'll get my head on straight one of these days, and we'll have a normal show. Do you remember back when we didn't go live and we would just be like, haha, we messed up, and we could just do it again?
Do it again. Now we just got to keep going.
Oh, those are the simple days. But I think this is more fun. I like our live shows.
Yep. So
yeah,
we like it too. But hope you guys are having a great week. It's going to be a fantastic rest of the week. That's all I got to say. Big things are coming this week for the Disney parks.
Yes, they are.
In fact,
well, yeah, I guess kind of this week, depending on do you consider Sunday at the end of the week or the beginning of the week?
Oh, no. I'm talking about Thursday.
I am too, and I'm talking about Disney. I'm talking about Disneyland because something exciting happens at Disneyland pretty soon too.
Oh, yeah, on the 4th. Yes, that's true.
I guess that's the next week then, since it's Sunday.
Well, actually, the fun and excitement starts tomorrow because Casey's Corner at Disney World opens back.
Yay! That's actually a big deal. That's a very tight space. And I know everyone loves it. It's not my favorite.
It's not, in my opinion, the best hot dog in Magic Kingdom. And I think we've talked about it before over at Liberty Square Market. Those are my favorite hot dogs. But it's going to be good to have another option there. I mean, it's been sad walking by it for the past almost year now.
Yeah.
And it just being closed. So.
Yeah. Well, there's that. We've got fireworks returning on the 1st at Disney World, the 4th at Disneyland.
And we actually have a comment from our cast member friend, Carson. She says, fireworks are happening tonight.
Ooh.
I'm curious now. Yep. We'll see.
Well, down the road at Universal, parades are back.
That's true.
So I think the pressure's on Disney to bring parades back pretty soon, and I've had clients asking about meet and greets, and I don't know when that'll happen, but we're so close to everything being back to normal. I can't wait to try to get around the corner and go into that bathroom behind Casey's and try to navigate around all the people again.
So going back to Casey's Corner real quick, Allie commented and she says it's not her favorite either, but definitely a sign of the earth healing.
That's a great way of putting it. If Casey's is open, anything can happen. And the ice cream shop across Main Street is going to be opening, I believe, the 7th. So that's exciting too.
Lots of things reopening. Ohana comes back this month
with the noodles.
The people have spoken. The Ohana Noodle Army has come out in full force, and no, we will not take rice with our
Ohana means family. Family means no noodle gets left behind.
We want our noodles back, and the people have spoken, and we're getting back. So I am actually going to drive down after work on Thursday to watch the fireworks.
Aww.
So
well, that'll make some really good content for social. I'll record it. I want to see I mean, I want to live vicariously through you. I'm blacked out right now. I can't go.
I forgot your silver.
I'm actually going to upgrade. When I renew my pass this fall, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade to gold. So a few days I still can't go, but I'm not a platinum person.
No platinum? Come on.
Nah, I'll have to sell a couple more trips, guys. Come on. You got to book with us a little bit more before Susie can get to. Please support our podcast so I can go to Disney more. That's a great appeal. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so fireworks, both happily ever after, and then Epcot Forever are coming back this week. So that'll be fun.
I'm surprised about Epcot Forever. I guess they're just going to go around all the Harmonious stuff.
So the only thing they're not going to do are the jet skis.
Okay. That's primarily what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's kind of a hazard, I think. So
kind of.
Anyway. Well, tonight's topic. This one was super fun to research.
Yes.
With the July 4th holiday coming up, this was on our list to do eventually. I feel like the topic fits with the July 4th holiday. But we actually had one of our listeners email us and say, you guys should talk about this. And I'm like, actually, we were planning on it. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun to like really dive in and research. But we are going to be talking about maybe the most controversial Disney park that was ever considered to be built. It never was. This doesn't exist. But it was called Disney's America. And let's backtrack a little bit and talk about Walt for a minute.
I think this is fair. I think this you can't tell this whole story because it's going to sound very random if we just explain what it is in comparison to the other parks. You're not getting the complete picture of where this idea, like why this idea happened. Why in the 90s this was a thing. This has kind of been an underlying theme of the company for a long time.
Yeah. So Walt Disney, like I really strongly believe one of the things that was most important to him was patriotism. The man loved his country. And that is evident in pretty much all of the parks, especially Disneyland and Disney World. You have Main Street USA. It is designed after Marceline, where turn of the century America. You have Frontierland, the age of exploration in American history. You have Liberty Square, which celebrates the colonial period, and the Hall of Presidents.
Specifically, though, even before that, Mr. Lincoln.
Yep, great moments with Mr. Lincoln. And they originally they wanted kind of a Liberty Square in Disneyland, but with budgets and stuff, it was kind of pushed off to the side. And this could be a topic for another time, but there was another park that Walt tried to build in St. Louis called Riverfront Square.
Right.
Same idea, but and that one fell through. And when that fell through, they kind of put their focus on Disney World. So it was in between Disneyland opening and Disney World opening.
Gosh, could you imagine if that had worked out though? Like, what would Disney World have? Because that would have, pushed all of that planning back even further. Walt probably would have passed before they would have gotten any kind of significant work done for us down here in Disney World. So that's a multiverse, to use a current Marvel phrase, option of what could have been. But of course, so is this.
Right. But fast forward to the 90s. And as we know, no idea ever fully dies at Disney. And at this point in time, Disneyland Paris is being built.
Mm-hmm.
And Eisner, Michael Eisner, is he and Frank Wells and Dick Nunes. There's Frank and
iconic.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
They really think that building in a smaller park in America that celebrates American history was going to be a good idea. And they did some scouting, like they looked in a couple of different places. They were looking at the Williamsburg area in Virginia, but they didn't think it was right with the amount of tourists that would come through, that it would be economically viable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they landed on 3,000 acres just west of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
in an area called Haymarket.
Yep.
And they very quietly, discreetly bought up this land.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was 35 miles west of DC. And it was all done in secret.
Mm-hmm.
So they start getting the ball rolling on things. And, maybe doing it in secret was a bad idea. This wasn't the first time they had done this. That's how they purchased all the land for Disney World. It was
right
under shell corporations and and everything. But the secrecy probably came back to bite them on this particular project, because initially, and obviously since we don't have the park, we know that things didn't really work out.
Spoiler alert.
Public opinion eventually soured.
I think this is an important word, though, eventually. Because initially, the reaction was very positive. And to do something like this, and you're right, it's not far from DC. There's also other theme parks in that area. There's a lot of very touristy things. I think it was like $50 million a year in projected revenue for the county. Pretty good deal for initially that, people in the area were excited about having Disney, and the location in more ways than one may have not been good. There were a lot of pros. There were a couple of cons, which I think we'll get to once we talk about that sentiment turning. But initially, this was pretty well received.
Yep. And it was, again, it wasn't that big of a park.
Mm-hmm.
It was smaller. It was smaller than Disneyland Paris. And it was less expensive too. In fact, the total cost to build would have been $650 million. But there were going to be 9 different lands inside of this park. And they all fit a theme of kind of, again, American history. Again,
right.
The park's name was going to be Disney's America. So we're going to kind of break down these lands just to kind of give you an idea of what you were going to expect when coming into them and what you could experience. Again, these were just ideas. They didn't get very far, but I mean, far enough to where, design art was made for these areas and attractions. So I think first, let's talk about the first thing you come into when you come into the land, and this was called Crossroads. Think of it as Main Street USA, but colonial.
Like 100 years older than Main Street USA. Yeah.
So the Crossroads USA was going to be, colonial Main Street. you're going to have river transport. So like boats, and there were going to be locomotives.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really, it was kind of a mix of time because obviously steam trains weren't around in.
Right, but it's not going to be a Disney park without a train that makes a lap around.
A loop around the park. So yeah, so this was Crossroads, and again, it was just going to kind of celebrate the marketplace idea of the colonial period.
Mm-hmm.
Next, you would have Enterprise. Now, Enterprise was going to celebrate the era of Industrial Revolution. And I think, because not everything in the park is educational.
Right.
They're going to fit some things inside of each little land. And I think this one probably would have been one of the major attractions.
Yeah.
For the park.
Yeah.
But they were going to have a roller coaster that was going to take you through a factory past the iron, forge and stuff. So,
gosh,
it's kind of a cool thrill ride.
That's really cool. I would imagine there'd be like heat coming off of that, or just something, and you can smell like the metal melting and just get that full, experience. Yes. Yeah, that one's really fun. And I also think that think throughout each of these different eras, we're going to say these are major turning points in some way or another for the country. And a lot of the things like Industrial Revolution, when you're talking about like pioneering new technologies, like that just also really fits so well into the Disney brand. And so I think this is an interesting marriage of entertainment and fun and Disney and history that, they share a lot of those same values. Like the Disney spirit and the American spirit have a lot in common, that positivity, that anyone can overcome anything. I mean, Walt Disney himself did. And I just think Industrial Revolution, it's just, that would have been really, really cool to feature in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next area was going to be called We the People. And this land was going to celebrate our heritage as a country of a land of immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were going to have was a replica of
that's so cool,
of Ellis Island in New York.
Wow.
And in addition to this, there was going to be like a big food court area featuring foods from the countries that most of the American immigrants, when they were coming to America, where they were coming from.
Yeah.
Ireland and probably Germany and England, maybe some of the Central European countries, but, almost
Italian.
Yeah. Almost like a little mini world showcase.
That's what I was thinking too. Gosh, that's again, see how that we already have something kind of like that celebrates unity and diversity, like how those two go together and in so many ways. That's just really clever. And gosh, the food would have been really good.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, there was going to be a show. Of course, this is kind of like the edutainment portion of this land, but there was going to be a show that was going to talk about the history of immigration to the United States. And I don't know when in the process it was, but somewhere along the line, the idea changed. Well, the overall concept was still there, but at one point there was consideration. And again, you have to think of when this was and what was taking place within the Disney company. And
this was early 90s. Yeah.
Partnering with. So at this point in time, Disney was starting to establish their relationship with Jim Henson. So the idea that was floated around for a little bit was this immigration show, but instead of animatronics or live actors, you were going to have the story done by Muppets. I love it.
I love it. I mean, I'm sure there'd be someone who could find some fault in whichever Muppet is assigned to the, their family's ancestral country. But I think it's funny because the Muppets are so, diverse and in and of themselves. And that would have been a really fun way to introduce some stuff. Had some really corny puns, I'm sure. Because it's the Muppets, of course. But yeah, and we did a whole episode actually on what would have been basically like Muppet Land, essentially, at Hollywood Studios, and everything that was going to happen and couldn't happen and how that ended up going. So if you want to go back and learn more about what else was going on during this time frame and in terms of Muppets in the Park, I encourage you to go back and find that episode, because they really were like chomping at the bit to get the Muppets like fully into the parks in an extensive way.
Yeah. The death of Jim Henson really just kind of took all that out of whack, but that wasn't necessarily the case for this. I mean, it just didn't work.
There's other reasons. Yeah.
There are other reasons.
We'll get to them.
Those. But the next land is Victory Field. So this entire area is themed after like 1930s, 1940s.
Oh, this is my favorite. This is my favorite era in history also.
To the armed forces.
I love it.
So the majority of this land was really going to be simulators. So if you think of almost like, why did I forget the name of the place that was at Disney Springs? Disney Quest.
Yeah.
Where you would be able to go in these simulators or virtual reality and be able to fly military aircraft or drive tanks, jump out of airplanes.
And freaking awesome. That's so cool. I'm telling you, if this had been a thing, you would never have gotten my dad or my brother out of this land ever. Like growing up, like we watched Band of Brothers, all of that stuff. This is mostly guys. I think this era in history, for many reasons, of course, who doesn't want to like drive a tank, but like culturally, politically with the war, it's fascinating. This would have been my favorite land. I mean, I want to drive a tank.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like Rise of the Resistance is really cool, but I want to drive a tank.
Yeah. Love Band of Brothers, by the way. It's maybe one of my favorite war series.
Yeah. No, it's really good.
Very good. Go check that out. It's on HBO. So, State Fair is the next one up. And this one's just kind of, pretty obvious.
Very Americana. I also want to point out while we're here, and this is, for our audio listeners later in the future listening, why you should hop onto our live shows. Now, this is very early concept art because essentially this entire project fell apart very quickly between the announcement and its cancellation. But does any of this look Disney to you? Like, this is very, I feel like, look at that fair. That just looks classic Americana, very like it fits into what it is. There's not a castle. There's Disney characters, of course. We've already referenced the Muppets and such, but this just looks so just real. I know that's a really dumb word, but it looks like it's what it's supposed to be. It doesn't look like a theme parked version of a county fair. It looks like a county fair in like 1937 during the Depression. But that's it.
Yeah, and the land was obviously going to feature the Ferris wheel, as you see, and then it was going to have a wooden roller coaster. I would imagine some Midway games were going to be there, but I am most intrigued by the baseball field.
Yeah,
they were literally going to build Field of Dreams, and you could go out to the bleachers and sit down with a hot dog and watch exhibition baseball.
That is just, I love it. It just sounds so relaxed. And I'm a nerd. And again, if you've listened to our show for any amount of time, when I've referenced, like, if you could do this ride or you can make, add a ride to the different lands in Magic Kingdom, we did an Imagineering episode. Oh, Andrew, Completely agree. This is the kind of stuff that I think we need more of. I think we need more things at Disney that celebrate history and education and are really fun. Now versions of this have found its way into different projects because, as we have said, things don't die at Disney. But in its entirety, of course, it's not happening. But I love it. Now we can get into this a little bit later, but I'll want it. I'll pay for it. Let's go.
For those of you listening, one of the people watching this evening said he had no idea like this even. Like, this really
there might be a reason for that.
this needs to be built right now, and I agree. Like I still think this could work. I still think this could work. So,
we could talk about that later.
Well, I mean, there are ideas. There are still good ideas. Okay, so next up, Family Farm.
Okay, this one may not be a good idea.
Oh, come on, it's a giant living with the land.
Okay, I love living with the land, but do you want a fast pass for milking a cow? Which was literally an idea on the table.
You underestimate.
No, you overestimate the kind of people who go around and want to milk a random cow. First of all, do you want to milk a cow? Do you want to milk a cow after 4,000 people earlier in the day have been milking cows?
Andrew says yes.
Look, we're from the South. I know what the power of the 4-H is. I think you're going to get a lot of I don't know. But I think you're going to get the animal people on you a little bit here. Yep. But the sentimentality of wanting Family Farm is understandable.
But animal handling, food production, farming techniques.
Oh, food production.
And then I think there was going to be like a dancing type thing as well.
Like a square dance?
Yeah.
Could you imagine instead of the stage, like we have in Tomorrowland?
Andrew says, imagine the food.
I know, it would be good. But that's because the cow you milked earlier in the day is now...
There's some fresh ice cream.
Hamburger. Oh.
Just saying. Anyway.
I'm the vegetarian.
All right, moving on. So the next area was going to be the Civil War Fort.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind this, they wanted to put you inside of the shoes of what it would look like to be a soldier in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
There were going to be outdoor reenactments. There were going to be exhibits on soldier life. And there was also going to be a big, and you can see the artwork here. There was going to be a Circle Vision Theater, and we've seen what that looks like. The China Pavilion movie, Canada, which just closed this week. Don't know if it's coming back.
Ooh,
but Circle Vision. But then in the field outside of the fort, and that was another thing about this park. There was actually a lot of green space.
Mm-hmm.
They planned that ahead of time, and this field was going to feature all of the Civil War reenactments. And out on the bay area, this was actually called Freedom Bay. This was going to be the location for their evening shows, where they would actually have the battle between the Monitor and Merrimack from the Civil War. You can see it in the concept art there. They would do a nightly battle in the bay. So
okay, that's really cool, you guys.
Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. And just in general, Civil War reenactment is I've been to one. Again, history class, had to go in high school. I could imagine the quality that Disney would put into it would be very interesting to see how Disney performers handle something quite a bit more solemn than the Festival of Fantasy parade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having to do that, throughout the day.
And this actually may be one of the reasons why this did not work out. But again, we'll get to that in a minute. So next up, we actually have the Native American area. So this was going to obviously go back. We're going back now hundreds of years, and we're talking about the Native American tribes of North America. If you've ever been to Epcot, currently, they have an exhibit inside of the American Adventure that has lots of artifacts and artwork. And I think that's what this would kind of be, but on a much larger scale. There was actually going to be a replica Indian village. And then in addition to that, there was going to be an attraction that was going to be a rafting ride. And it was going to be themed after the Lewis and Clark edition. Which
I think is really cool. You know, that's kind of, again, exploration, the partnership with Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea and everything that happened there. You can see kind of the crossover in the history lesson into Disney values. Plus, to be honest, Disney at some point needs a good raft ride.
Right? Because...
and I'm not counting the ones at the water parks, because water park rides they're going to be fun. It's a water park.
Yeah, Kali River Rapids isn't that great. Now Grizzly River Run in Disneyland is better than Kali River Rapids, but
this would have given us a chance for a superior.
True.
But alas.
All right, so the last land that they were going to have was President's Square. And this was literally just going to be a mirror of the Hall of Presidents in Magic Kingdom. And then they were going to have an outdoor theater where they could do additional shows and things there inside of that land. Now, another important thing was, you had the parks, but it's what they did outside of the parks as well that it was kind of interesting in their design work. One, obviously hotel space.
Yeah.
But part of the plans were to actually build suites inside of the park in the different lands. So you could get the full experience, I guess, of that.
Wake up to the rooster from the family farm and wake up at 4:30, have to go milk the cow for all the people that day, getting milkshakes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But that's really cool. They're wanting to get you to see this as more than just a theme park. They wanted you to experience. And, Eisner had some really great quotes that just revealed their heart and their passion for why they wanted to do this. Because America's cool. History is cool. Democracy is kind of good. The alternative, isn't ideal. And it's worth celebrating. History and all of its flaws is worth still celebrating and acknowledging, because there's so many teachable moments that you can integrate into something that you're going to remember. I think it was Eisner talking about, I don't remember learning half of this stuff from school. Why? Because you learn just facts. But if you get to see it or put it into some kind of perspective, it really shapes how you see the world today and see how far we've come, how far we still have to go, and appreciate what people who have gone before you have done and how blessed we are to live where we are. The idea is well-intentioned. I think it's worth saying that, but the cons are noticeable at the same time.
Right. And we'll get to those in just a second, because we're about to start getting into the opposition. So they presented this idea, and the last thing I was going to point out, because I think this was cool, it celebrates the past, but it also celebrates the potential for the future too. Because I think one of the coolest elements that they were going to build here was actually a broadcast studio, like a live broadcast studio, to where they could have presidential debates take place right there on at the park. So
I love it. I love it so much. It's like if you just threw in, Darth Vader somewhere. It's all the things that I love in one place. It's history, it's debate, and Star Wars. And then I'd live there. And then we wouldn't have this podcast if this had happened. Like, where's Susie? I don't know.
Oh. So the problems with this,
Yeah.
Well, one is it's just where it was.
I was about to say, let's start very objective with the cons, and the location is one of those.
Location is a con. So it's very convenient to Washington, D.C. They were going to get a lot of people, a lot of traffic. Now, Interstate 66 would have to be expanded because it was a nightmare, apparently, during rush hour. So,
which I don't sympathize with at all. We live in Florida. I've never seen an interstate not being expanded.
Right.
Which, like, I get it, but at the same time, interstates get expanded all the time. So, well.
So there's a very famous historian named David McCullough. Excellent author. Great.
Gosh, he just looks smart.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. Like, he is one of the foremost authorities on American history out there. And he was one of the most vocal people in opposition of this plan. And that's really because, again, it was what was next to this. This park was going, these 3,000 acres were less than 5 miles from the Manassas battlefield.
Yeah.
Which, for all of you American history buffs out there, this is a Civil War battlefield for not just one, but 2 major battles.
Mm-hmm.
The Battle of Bull Run. But this is probably one of the biggest sticking points was, and McCullough actually even was quoted in saying, why, with the battlefield being 5 miles away, why would you have reenactments of those battles in a park when you can go to the actual place that it was? And I get it. I get that sentiment.
I mean, I get it too. But devil's advocate, I think Disney may have a bigger budget than the state parks to put something, like that on. But again, then it deters people from actually going there and seeing it. So the good thing is, yes, you're close to DC, but then it's like, are you actually going to go to the museums now, or have you been spoiled by a reenactment of some of these things, And I think that's a very, philosophical argument about like how much do people appreciate, museums and older things as opposed to just like, oh, this is flashy and fun. So I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Being so close, you'd think that there'd be overlap, but
right. A lot of the other opposition as well was, okay, is Disney really going to get this right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there going to be like pixie dust and Tinkerbell all over the place and with American history?
Well, Eisner tried to prove that they could by bringing some of these historians to World Showcase, to the American experience, and they were not Adventure, they were not super impressed. But they did like Hall of Presidents. So he had that going for him. So one of his 9 lands got a check mark.
And the reason they didn't like American Adventure was, I think, because of the mixing of like the time periods with the hosts. So you had Mark Twain and Benjamin Franklin like sitting together, Twain smoking a cigar and Franklin sitting there, and they're like, what this is confusing. Like, you done. But they did like the Hall of Presidents.
Yeah.
And that was their first initial look. Okay, maybe this can work. The problem is Disney took it a little too far in their
No, really. It's not like we've never seen them do that before.
So in effort to prove to people that this was not going to be, a fairy tale, they went to the extreme, and actually Bob Weiss, God bless him,
he should have had someone teaching him how to talk to the press, or keeping him away from the press.
Right. He was quoted as saying, "We want to make you a Civil War soldier. We want to make you feel what it was like to be a slave, or what it was like to escape through the Underground Railroad."
I think feel is not a good word. Maybe understand, or and obviously not from a good way. But now you're getting into the area where naturally a lot of people who do love history, who would geek out over this, are also going to feel the tug of how much of this are you capitalizing off of?
Right.
How much of this are you almost trivializing or watering down for the sake of appealing to a broad audience? Because history is ugly, and you need to know that. You need to know the bad things that happen so that you don't do them again, but you don't sell merchandise.
Yeah. And I can't remember his name. There was a novelist who actually commented on this whole situation. Again, there were a lot of people who were really opposed to this.
Yeah.
But he said, in relation to the whole his comment that Bob Weiss said about experiencing what slaves experience, he said, to present even the most squalid sights would be to cheaply romanticize suffering.
Yeah.
So I think those two things are the biggest things. It's location and what, to an extent, they were trying to do, what they were wanting to do with some of the attractions.
Right. And I think it's hard. We've talked on here about intent before, in terms of there's a difference between just knowing, seeing something in its completion and knowing what it went into it. You don't know intent. You see a final product. It's the same thing where you have the final product. You can't control how people interact or what they take away from it. And so, could this be really, really good? It really could go the opposite way. This could really turn people off to a lot of really good things about Disney, a lot of good things about, history, or it could give them a really twisted view where they just don't feel like it's something that was that big of a deal. Because unfortunately, there is a fair point. We don't really teach like a lot of the interesting points of history. Again, like I said before, we just learn like dates and people. And I think this wanted to humanize history, but you can go like too far. And I think this, as much as I want to drive a tank and milk a cow with Andrew, I think it possibly would have gone too far.
And Disney did their very best to really show that they were trying hard to do this right. They did self-imposed like sanctions on what they were going to do. They were going to of the 3,000 acres that they got for this, they were only going to use 10% of it for the park and parks and entertainment and stuff. The rest of it is forest, and they were going to protect those. They were doing height restrictions on all of the buildings so it wouldn't mess with the local area and in the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
No diesel engines in the area too, just to cut back on emissions.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they were trying real hard, but the opposition just came out swinging. I mean, they even created the Organization to Protect Historic America for the sole purpose of not letting this happen. So, and that was headed up by
it's kind of serious.
all of those historians. ahead of this, so there was Disney actually donated $100,000 to the preservation of Civil War battlefields. So, like, they're trying to negate all of the negativity coming from this one group, but eventually it literally became an avalanche of opposition. So you were hit with historical experts, environmental experts, what is going to be the environmental impact to this area. And eventually it actually made it as far as Capitol Hill. There was a subcommittee hearing.
Oh my gosh.
With the Public Lands and Monuments Subcommittee.
Yeah. I was about to say, this is going to be an infrastructure problem too.
Yeah. And this thing lasted for 5 hours. Disney actually won this.
It's shocking.
The Senate actually was like, this is up to the state.
It's right. Well, I mean, that is fair. But, and again, remember we said there was a lot of positivity around it initially, locally. And that was also Disney's argument. Like, it's private property, but public appeal and public sentiment are very important. I think it's worth noting that between the announcement of the park, which was November of 1993, I was less than a month old. And then it was announced it was no longer considered to be a project, was September of 94.
Yep, September.
So less than a year.
Yeah.
Now that's between announcement. Of course, they had been working on things prior, but in terms of the public knowing everything,
something else
pretty quick.
Something else that I think that is important to this whole thing, just kind of in the background, is the death of Frank Wells.
That's a great point. This is a good point. Go. I know where you're going.
Frank Wells was, I mean, if there were, Eisner and Wells just were a power team.
Yeah.
Eisner was like the business guy, but Wells really was the shake hands, and like he was the peacemaker, I guess, of the group, I guess you could say.
No, I think that's a fair assessment, because if you watch what is it, Waking Sleeping Beauty, there was and now this is not necessarily from a theme park perspective, but there were a lot of conflicts between different departments and different arms of the company at this point, and Frank was always the one to go in and clean those situations up, really, to be the person to be a peacemaker.
Yeah, and tragically he died in a helicopter crash, and I really think it affected Eisner probably for the rest of his term as with Disney.
Yeah.
And going back to the situation that we're talking about tonight with the park, it just got worse and worse. I mean, there was a 3,000 person protest in Washington, D.C. And they had, in addition to that, a petition that was signed by like close to, I think, 30,000 people to make this thing stop. I mean, they came out in full force. And this picture is interesting. I found this one. Also at this time was the release of The Lion King. And
oh my gosh.
Eisner had, I guess, invited some of the local political figures like in that area to like an event screening of The Lion King. And that was not received well. So you can actually see the Michael Eisner costume with the Lion King, Lyin King. So eventually this thing just blew up. And again, like we said, September 28th, 1994, Disney pulled the plug on the project.
Third Battle of Bull Run. That's good.
Oh, I mean, it's important to note that, the court of public opinion was really swinging hard on this one.
Yeah. Well, did you know Brazilian drought also drives frozen OJ higher?
No,
that was another headline on that image.
But
what a time!
The political cartoons.
Oh.
Time.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
If you're listening to this podcast, go watch the replay of the video, and you'll see these. We pulled a couple of cartoons, but this one was from the Orlando Sentinel. With there's a cannon with Manassas stamped on it, and it is blown Mickey Mouse off the face of the earth. So
yeah, just his ankles and his yellow shoes remain. I think that we need to oh no.
This is the last one.
Oh no.
This is the last graphic.
Oh gosh.
It's another cartoon. And it has the Union because I think the Confederates won both of the battles of Bull Run. It has the captain is defeated at Manassas, and it has McDowell in 1861 with his portrait, Pope in 1862, and Mouse 1994.
Oh my gosh.
A cartoon caricature of Mickey Mouse as a Civil War general.
Wow. Well, as we've said a few times, ideas don't die.
They do not.
Sometimes they want to buy other theme parks in California.
Right.
And they get shot down again. So Disney tried again. Was it the Knott's Berry Farm?
Yep. Knott's Berry Farm
in California, and the answer was no in terms of Disney purchase. They did not want Disney to buy their property, and so that was another possible location that that they were eyeing. So
Allentown, Pennsylvania was an option, and when the pamphlets went out at the Gettysburg Memorial.
Oh my gosh!
All right, nope, not doing this. But
just stay away from battlefields.
Knott's Berry Farm, they want Disney. They were afraid Disney was going to change too much of the park.
Yeah. So,
but some of those ideas from this park are kind of in existence a little bit today.
Mm-hmm.
The Pixar Pier, formerly,
California Adventure really took a lot of the very like high level ideas, I think, in terms of like celebrating a part of the country in a way. So there was that.
So
Hall of Presidents is still pretty cool.
Yeah.
It makes me cry. It really does.
It is very well done. I did enjoy the update.
The update's great.
Morgan Freeman, but wait, he's not doing it anymore. They moved that one.
I don't know who does it now.
It's been a while. So it's been a while since I've been in the Hall of Presidents, because the park was closed for like a few months.
And let's be honest, unless you have time and you just want a good cry with Susie, you're not gonna go. Or you get distracted by the previous great moments in history, or the Muppet Show that is no longer in Liberty Square. It's unfortunate. I don't know. Well,
anyway,
if anything,
I love.
We keep saying ideas never die. There's a lot of really, really good ideas here, and I think the spirit of this park is what makes it worth remembering.
What's your favorite like little land?
Victory Field.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think so. I just think anything in that whole corner, anything celebrating just that era of history, I really like. I also think though that the Enterprise era would have been really interesting. I also think that would have been tricky in a lot of ways because like working conditions weren't great. But from a strictly like technical standpoint, the leaps and bounds that we made as a country are, I mean, the Empire State Building was built in less than a year. You know what I mean? Like, and it takes us 2 years now to build apartment complexes here. Like, you know, it's fascinating. So probably those two, and that's more strictly just from a general historical standpoint. How about you?
It's kind of a toss up for me. I love the idea of the immigration. We the people.
Yeah.
The replica of Ellis Island, and then just having, again, we love food. So the international, like the immigrant countries, cuisines, there, I think that would have been really cool. I think the idea of having the Muppet Show a little bit part of me. But I really like the Civil War one too. Especially the nighttime show with the battle between the Monitor and Merrimack out in the lagoon. So
yeah,
that would have been cool to see. But I still think some of this could work depending on where it is.
Now, I didn't see this. Who owns the property in Virginia?
You know
what? Does Disney still own it?
I don't know. No.
Did they?
No. I know what happened. All the land that they purchased are now like 10,000 homes, like condos, apartments. Oh, so it's all.
So they did sell.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, interesting little. I think this was a great episode for a 4th of July weekend, celebrating what could have been. Well, I guess it's almost the weekend. Well, whatever. 4th of July spirit, if you will.
And we want you to have a safe holiday. So, be responsible out there. Enjoy yourselves. To all of our international friends, have a great weekend. But for all of our Americans, happy Independence Day. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can find us. We are on Apple. I put up the wrong graphic. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, whether it's on an app or whether it's on your smart TV, you can find us by just searching for the Imagineers Disney Podcast. Leave us a rating, tell us what you love, and email us for show ideas, just like this one. So again, we listen to our audience, and we love talking about topics that you want to hear us talk about. And this one was a super fun one to research, and it was a lot of fun. So, also follow us, keep up with us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. This again, search for the Imagineers Disney Podcast, and you'll be able to find us. Our link tree is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. And that is where you can find our links to both our Discord channel, where we do our Friday night movies. Are we doing a movie this week?
I was just going to say, last year on 4th of July weekend, we did National Treasure.
Ah, that's right. We did.
I think we should do National Treasure too.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, Nick Cage. Yes. It's not as good as the first one, but there's fireworks at the end, and that's very 4th of July.
Okay,
and
fine.
We just talked about the Civil War. This one's very much focused on the Civil War and the conspiracy regarding the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And there's a Native American aspect to it. It fits in perfect. But to be fair, I could find an excuse to watch either of those movies any weekend.
All right, so National Treasure 2 it is.
That's a book of secrets.
So come join us on Discord on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just start the movie right at 8 o'clock and join in on our conversation as we chat and talk about the movie that we watch each and every week. In addition, you can also on our link tree also find our link to our Patreon. Thank you to our patrons. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for supporting the podcast. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can. Again, this is not required, but we would appreciate you your monetary contribution. If you have enjoyed listening to the podcast each and every week, all of that goes to help support and run the podcast on a monthly basis. Okay. Well, I think that's going to be about it for tonight.
Wow.
Whew.
That was fun. I had to do a lot of research. I didn't like researching stuff growing up. It's like, oh, I gotta do research for
Disney
school.
Research is different.
Disney research is different.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to coming back at you next week with another episode. But until then, friends, remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.
There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting.